Hi guys, welcome to Traders Galaxy. I thought I would do a bit of an impromptu video. I haven't done a video for quite a long time now on the channel, which is a shame. But we've got new beat 'em up coming, so it's worth just sort of getting something out there to at least explain to you folks a little bit about how it works. We do actually have a game planned for the video, so which will be out prior to the pre-order, I hope. Yeah. So I'm just going to talk about how the game works and a little bit in the mechanics of it. If you're familiar with other Traders Galaxy games, then a lot of the actual dice mechanics will be very familiar to you. A lot of the game, though, is centered around transitioning between zones, and there's a lot of tactics around that, as well as like picking up various power-ups and how that works. So I'll try and talk through those in the next 20 minutes or so. I hope you enjoy this video. I will try and make more videos. As always with this channel, I struggle. It always comes last on my priorities. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. If I do get up to 500 subscribers, then of course I like put more time into the channel and more effort into the channel, because obviously it shows people want to see more of the content. So thanks very much, and I'm looking forward to the release of Beat 'em Up, and it's a fantastically fun game, and I hope you will enjoy it. Thanks. Hi everyone, I thought I would do an unscripted raw video just explaining a little bit about how Beat 'em Up works. I did attempt to explain this to a friend on the phone and I completely stuffed it up, so I suspect this is probably not going to be done in one take, although I'd like it to be, because I just don't have time to edit videos at this stage. So as you may have heard, Beat 'em Up is scheduled for pre-order 10th to 10th 25. It has been some time in the making, and shout out to my friend David Hugsley for helping me edit the book and spending some time on it with me. But it is a really great game now, and so that has been time well spent. So as you can see here on the video, this is sort of, it's not quite everything that you get in the box set, but it's close. Like for instance, you don't get the police car, and there's some of the terrain features are different, but you will get 18 pieces of terrain, just small pieces like this. You will get counters, you will get dice, all the cards you need, and these wall sections and the corners, etc. I'll explain a bit more about the wall sections later. I just wanted to sort of go through this video and give people an idea of sort of the feel of the game and how it works and the basic concepts involved. I won't really play through a game or anything like that, but this is more just of an introduction, as it is probably a little bit different to what other people have maybe played. Although some of the games, these sort of adventure games, may be similar in some respects. So people might be able to draw some correlations to those games as I go along and explain it. So Beat 'em Up really is a cooperative game, but it actually uses a game master. I have shied away from using what they term as AI type rules to move the enemies, etc., because I really want the enemies to take on a personality of their own, and I do think that having a games master controlling the bad guys really adds more to the flavour of the game. Especially like as the enemies also have characters which are like bosses, etc., that the games master can really get behind. So that's probably the first thing that may be a bit old school about this game, is that it requires a minimum of 2 players. So Maybe in the future I'll bring out some rules to play solo, or to have an AI generated controlled enemies, but at this stage I went with the Games Master. Usually that would be the most experienced player, of course. So the game, you can have up to 4 heroes. You can actually have as many heroes as you want, but it just gets a bit cramped. As you can see, each zone, which are these tiles here, are a 6x6 grid pattern. And so once you start getting up the number of heroes, the number of enemies really increases, and it starts to get quite crowded in these little places. But you can actually, technically, have as many as you want. Also, you can swap the whole game as well and actually use the heroes as the bosses and the bosses as the heroes if you really want to try something different. So it doesn't really matter at all whether you use it that way or the other way. And in the future, of course, I will bring out scenarios, because there's a huge range of Traders Galaxy miniatures now that are suitable for beat 'em up, and I definitely have more things planned. Now, just as I say that, I'll better just mention as well, as been mentioned elsewhere, that each of these tiles are reversible, because I've future-proofed this game for different missions that will be fantasy related. So the game's inspired by the side-scrolling beat-em-ups that you used to play on the old 16-bit consoles. So Streets of Rage, Final Fight, but also games such as Knights of the Round or Golden Axe are all part of that genre. So my idea is to be able to play any of those type of games with beat 'em up. There is already a beat 'em up blank stat card that you can just get off the Traders Galaxy website for free and create your own characters on using that stat card, and just fill. You basically I think it's just a Word doc or a PDF document. You just fill in the blanks, and so it's very easy to make and print your own beat 'em up cards and just play whichever type of mission you make up. Right. So just getting into a bit of the mechanics of the game, those who are familiar with Bot War and other Traders Galaxy games will know that the combat system on the dice, etc., does not really change. It's simply really a roll-off between what we call shield or blocking dice, which are these one yellow here. They're in the Traders Galaxy games, these would be called S3 dice. So the reason why is because it's sort of predominantly a shield dice, and it's a D3 type of scenario. So there's 2 blanks, 2 2s, and 2 1s on those. So they're sort of your shield blocking dice predominantly, but they can also be used for attack as well, depending whether you're asked to add an S3 or whatever. So these purple ones here are attack dice, and they're usually called A3 for obviously attack, and it's once again a D3 based system. But these have well, I guess it's a D6 based because it's got 6 sides, but it's predominantly based on D3 because the highest number is 3. So you got a blank, 2 1s, 2 2s, and a 3. So you actually have a good chance on these to get better strikes. So sometimes these are used for shielding, but or blocking, very rarely. But yeah, this is the same for all Traders Galaxy games, by the way. And then you've got the critical dice, which have no blanks, and they've just got 2 of each of the things up to a maximum of 3. So how it is normally you would come up and sort of roll, oh, I've got 3 attacks, and you roll, oh, I've got 5, and then someone would have however many shields, and they roll, and they've got 2, and so the difference is 3, so there's 3 damage. So it's very, very simple, like in regards to the dice roll, the initial dice roll. The tactics come in because you can actually boost your attacks and defenses, and you can also get extra things like combos, etc., which keep adding dice. There is a sort of exploding dice type of situation for combos or critical throws, etc. So whilst I just showed you how very simply the dice work, there is actually lots of little add-ons. Sorry, I'm moving my hands in front of the camera there. Lots of little add-ons that you have to make a decision on as you're playing that just change that from a simple dice roll to actually something very tactical. So I'll just move on now to the board. So the board here, I've set up in a square pattern of 9 zones, but not all missions will be in this shape. As you saw before, the tiles are separate, so you can actually, if you want, just make them in a big long line and just go from one to the next. If you do that though, it makes it difficult because one of the key dynamics in this is deciding the path that your heroes will take between the zones. So obviously if you have a big long line, there's only one path to take. So, but you can obviously go 2 by 4 and then 1 on the end. So it really depends on the space you have, how you want to set it up. Now, in the rulebook, there is one mission outline. It shows you how to set out the board and pretty much everything from sort of start to finish on that mission. Most of the other missions will become available in a separate like compendium as I bring out more missions for various things. So, but I'm hoping that I've future-proofed the game so you won't actually need to purchase anything more except for just the missions themselves and get the missions. So, and whatever extra miniatures you have from the Traders Galaxy range. So, which there is actually quite a lot to go for. So you could play ninjas, you can even go for a horror theme, you can do lots of stuff with this. Right, so these walls are quite important because what the walls do is they limit your choices of where you can choose to go, because you can't go through a wall unless you have a key power-up. Now the key power-up will be found under like a power-up somewhere on the board. So as you're fighting along, someone will get a key power-up, right? Well, they gotta protect it and look after themselves till they get to the door, and then they can use the key power-up to... Usually in the first mission, you need the key power-up to actually access the final boss, which is in this room here. So you can only use the key power-up to go through the door, and once you go through the door, the key power-up's used and the door is open. So, for instance, over here though, you don't need a key power-up, but you do have to take the long way around because you can't access this zone here in order to, because there is no key to get through. So it just sort of, the idea of it just sort of corrals your choices and forces you to take different paths along the board. So for instance, if that was in the middle, you could go left or you could go right around, depending how you wanted to do it. So that's really the reason for the walls. They also provide, you can't, there's one of the key dynamics in this game is called knockback or knockdown, right? And so what happens is if your hero, some villains or heroes have an ability called knockback or knockdown, and basically if they take however many hits, knockdown and knockback are actually two different things. So knockback is if you get knocked back one space for every point of damage you take, and knockdown is when you actually have something like a weapon. It'll actually have this weapon causes knockdown 5, which means you're actually, regardless of how much damage you take, you'll actually be pushed back 5. Now, that's all well and good if it's a new zone, because you can't actually enter a new zone without first defeating all the enemies in the active zone. But if you're moving, like you have the ability to get knocked back into an old zone, then what would happen is you knock back into the old zone, you have to draw another spawn card, and you could be spawning new enemies in the old zone. So now that creates what we call a double zone. And you will not be able to move to any other zone or any new zone until you've defeated all the enemies in the double zone now. So you've got to be really careful and tactical about where you place your heroes when you're entering a zone, and about who's going to go first and who is going to, and the potential for knockback into the old zone again. So otherwise the game can become quite difficult quite quickly. Now, as the guys on Tabletop kindly pointed out, each of the heroes that you get do have different abilities. So for instance, Sydney here, she's faster, but she doesn't have as much damage, but she actually has a thing called Tactician, where she can manipulate her own team to make them faster or activate faster. So that's actually quite useful when you come up against bosses. You really want to be able to fight first in a certain situation, and so she can actually manipulate it. But she is lighter, so she probably need more protection. Whereas you get other characters, which I don't actually have down here, like Wesley. He's much tougher, and he's got a ranged attack where he can throw his football across. Now, ranged attacks can only be used on a diagonal or a straight set of squares. So it's not just, you can't just range attack anybody on the board. So you can actually avoid ranged attacks by either going behind scenery and getting an extra cover save, or being off the line of that. So those who have played chess, it's like a bishop move or a rook move. That's the only way you can make a ranged attack. Now, when you move into thing, you just count it, like if you've got a movement of like 6 or something, you've got plenty of move, you just 1, 2, move in, and you can now fight a round of combat. So that's, you get 2 activations per, just like in other Traders Galaxy games, each character gets 2 activations, and so move is 1 activation, and then fighting close attack is a 2nd activation, and so that would be the maximum activations that you would be able to use. So you've got to be careful how you activate, because you can, for instance, if you want to move and pick up this piece of terrain here, you can. But if you pick it up, you're actually quite vulnerable to attack then, because you must, if you can pick it up and throw it straight away, but if someone's not on the line of diagonals or straights, you can't throw it, which means your movement slows down and your blocking goes to 1. So you're quite limited when you're holding, and you can't actually throw it at nothing. So you have to throw it at something. So you've got to be careful when you pick stuff up that you can actually throw it. Now, you can also get to the power-ups, which are, as you saw underneath there, you can actually get to those power-ups by just smashing the terrain piece. So you can smash it, but then that's the end of your, because that's a close attack move, that's actually the end of your turn. So you do leave, this one's a baseball bat here, you do leave a baseball bat here for Gomez to be able to pick up and use in his turn if you're not careful. So picking up power-ups is just not as easy. There's like there's a way to use that in tactics. There's a tactical way to work out whether you're going to smash the terrain first or pick up and throw something or however. So had John moved to here, so if he took this route here, he could have actually picked that up and thrown it at Gomez, caused damage, and then went straight onto the power-up. But if he's coming from this direction here, then he can't pick it up and throw it because he's not in the right angle. So I hope that was not as confusing as it sounded in my head. So, but please put any comments in the any questions in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer them. I'm sure with my Australian accent and the way I'm explaining this is probably not about as clear as mud to most people. So yeah. So when you first start off, I've just got over here the heroes cards. The heroes get a thing called heroic tokens. And so these are sort of like little pieces of inspiration here. They can be shared with any other hero in the same zone. And they also get a 1-up, which is a thing here in case they do actually die. They can respawn once back onto the board. But once that's gone, you would have to either find other 1-ups on the board under power-ups. There is medical kits like this under power-ups that can be shared, and they can heal back damage as well as you go throughout the game. It is quite difficult. You will need to work together as the heroes to get through, and you will need to work together with tactics on how to do it. For instance, one of the tactics can be like moving into the corner to defend so you can't get surrounded by enemies. Another tactic would be to use the abilities of the heroes themselves and take out key characters. Like for instance, this character here is what we call a goon, and he actually can inspire the 2 thugs. So take out the goon first, or depending on who's going to activate first, you might want to take out the earliest activating thug, and in order so you activate the rest of your teammates before the enemies may activate. So there's lots of little tactics like that that have to be used to get through the game. Now, I'll just explain very quickly how the Games Master part will work. So these heroes have moved onto the board. Let's say they've moved on from here. Now, the minute they move onto the board, they draw a thing. We draw like a spawn card. Now, the Games Master does. Now, the Games Master draws this spawn card, and it says here there's 2 heroes active on the board, which means that there will be 1 times A3 plus 1 thugs. So that's one of these dice here. You roll that. I get 1 plus 1 thug. So there's only 2 thugs in that zone. So these power-ups down here are ignored for this particular mission. But yeah, so then the Games Master will go, oh, there's 2 thugs. So he chooses 2 thugs and he spawns them on the opposite side of the zone. And so then he sets up the stat cards that you can see over here for these. And he sets them up in what we call strategy rating order, which is essentially when, it's like an order of when the characters will activate. It doesn't matter what side, whether it's heroes or enemies, the characters in Traders Galaxy games always activate in strategy rating order. So for instance, over here, Sydney's got a strategy rating of 2, if you can see here. Sorry, you probably can't, off camera. Strategy rating of 2, so she will activate first. Obviously, she's already probably activated to move in there. And John will activate second, so he's 4. So Gomez is on a 4. And in this game, the bad guys will always go first in a tiebreaker. So Gomez will probably not be able to activate because John has just activated to move into the zone. But then Eugene is on a 6, so Eugene will be the next person to activate in this scenario here. So I know that probably sounds quite confusing, but there are no turns in beat 'em up. It's simply a continual cycle of lowest to highest strategy ratings as the game progresses. Things like resetting your heroic tokens, etc., all happen as you cross the borders between zones. So that crossing the borders between zones from not in a knockback, but from a new zone, from an active zone or just recently cleared zone to a new zone is what triggers all the resets of tokens, etc., etc. So the only thing that's not really reset, I guess, is when you knock back, the power-ups aren't reset or the terrain's not reset if it's been used from an old zone. So I'm sure I'm now like just waffling and I've just turned into a lot of noise. It is probably a complex game to explain without playing. We have got a game scheduled with an overhead camera shot so everybody can see how it's played. It's just that Jeremy is sick at the moment, so we haven't been able to play. We don't want to catch the flu. So hopefully that will happen in the next week or two before the pre-order goes live. Now, you do actually get quite a lot in the game. I think just from memory, there are 20... there's either 19 or 21 characters, and then there's 18 terrain pieces. There'll be 6 walls. This is only showing 4 here, but there's actually 2 walls that are more fantasy style, but you can obviously use them in this. One is obviously a throne room for the final boss of this particular set of missions, and there's some forests and cliff faces and things like that. So the idea is that over time you can add to the game and make it bigger if you want to. You can even buy 2 sets and have 2 18 zones. Depends how big you want to play and how long you want to play for. So and of course how many if you had 2 sets, I guess you could put the matching tiles from both sets together and run all double zones. And so you can actually run, 5 or 6 heroes versus the Games Master, and you just have to adjust the amount of characters that the amount of enemies that are spawned every time. So it's pretty easy to do. You just add the 2 and the 4 to get 6, and that's how many enemies will join each zone. So I guess the game is quite scalable. Depends how long you want to play it for and how big you want to go. And yeah, so I think I've covered everything. There is a lot of... I probably should talk a little bit about the power-ups and the weapons. So when the Games Master sets up the board, they have to set up power-ups underneath each of the terrain features in the board. Now, the power-ups, there's 2 types. Well, at least there's 2 types in this game. So there are weapons and there are power-ups. Now, power-ups could be anything from super strength, which gives you, makes you pretty hard for that zone, and you'll smash a lot of guys pretty easily with your super strength. Or like weapons, and now each weapon has their own set of different rules. So that one, there's a knife, but there is a sword and there is a bat as well. There's also medical kits. There's a large and a small medical kit, and there's also money. So there's like gold things here. Now the money, if you're playing multiple missions and sort of running it a bit like a campaign, there are some rules to be able to use your money that you get from the game to purchase new abilities. So it's sort of like training, right? So you can, for instance, if your character, for instance, John has got powered uppercut, and that's the only super ability he has, but he might want sort of Tiger Leap. So he could save up, I think it's 300 credits, and purchase the training for Tiger Leap. So likewise, I think you can also purchase to start the game with a weapon. Now, with weapons, just like the video game inspiration for this game, if you drop a weapon 3 times, it will disappear. So weapons cannot be shared by the characters in the same way that power-ups can. So for instance, if you can't actually share this because it's immediate, it happens immediately, but say Sydney has a medical kit, she hasn't actually used the medical kit, but she has it, and John is damaged and he needs healing. Well, that medical kit can instantly heal, be given to John immediately to heal John. Obviously she can't hand over the super strength because she's actually using it. because it's immediate. But with weapons, you can't actually hand the weapons over. So you can drop the weapon, and then the other character can move across and pick it up, but that will count as one of the 3 drops that you have. So with the knife in particular, it can be thrown as well, but things like the sword, etc., you can drop it, and if you do drop it, it's then available for any character, including enemies on the board, to pick up and use. Some enemies also start the game with a weapon, and once you hit an enemy or knock an enemy down, the enemy, well, if anyone gets knocked down carrying a weapon, they immediately drop the weapon where they were and are knocked back or knocked down, and the weapon stays on the ground. So that counts as a drop. So the idea is that once the weapons are dropped on the 3rd time, it's gone. So you've got to either definitely use the weapon because they give you some really great bonuses, but just be careful getting knocked back or knocked down whilst using the weapon, because you will drop the weapon immediately and it can be picked up by a bad guy and used against you. So those sort of dynamics, once again, are all in the tactics of it. It may not be the best idea to run in and grab the power up straight away or try and grab the power up straight away. You may actually want to save power-ups for a boss card, for instance. So that's the sort of thing. With the missions themselves, they are sort of worked out. They're quite specific. For instance, when you do the cards, like spawn cards, like for instance, the mission 1, it actually has 3 bosses in the first mission. So the first main boss and the secret boss are shuffled into the second half of the spawn card deck. So if you're very unlucky, you could actually get the secret boss and the mid-level boss at the same time, which would not be pretty. Whilst the final boss card is kept separate and drawn at the last thing. So it's quite random how you set up. There's also, this is the final thing I'll waffle on about, which is the environmental factors. So there will be like a civilian miniature that you get with the game, because one of the things that we really wanted to try and create with the game is replayability, and I don't want this game to be grindy. Like there's quite a danger sometimes, and that's another reason why we really wanted the Games Master, because you just can't create dynamic games using charts and dice. So the Games Master will not only make things different, but we've also added things like environmental factors. So when you enter a zone, the Games Master, it's really up to the Games Master, but there is a chart to roll on for environmental factors. So for instance, you could move into a zone and you've got a mini mission within the zone itself to rescue this civilian. If you rescue the civilian and the civilian doesn't get beaten up by the thugs, then the civilian will give you, and I can think of a couple of examples in video games where villages are being attacked or whatever, and you save the villagers and they hand you like a potion bottle or something like that. So you'll get a little sort of prize from the civilian if you manage to protect them in that zone. Another thing might be that you're playing and it's wet and it's in the rain, and there's a chance you'll slip over, or that gunpowder weapons won't work, or such and such like that. And there's another chance that you'll be playing in the dark. So you move into the zone, it's instantly in the dark, and you actually don't know what thugs and bosses or whatever are spawned. They're just represented by counters, and when the counters get into base-to-base contact, then you'll know what characters you're facing. So, and that's all really up to the Games Master to keep that level of play. So there is a a responsibility for the Games Master to keep it fun like that and to really keep those things secret, like playing in the dark. But to me, that's where I feel the real enjoyment for the game will happen, with a bunch of friends that get on well and that they know the game, and to have the Games Master doing things like that, there is, I guess, that sort of element required to make it work in such a way. So we really enjoy the game. The play tests have been interesting and quite fun, and there's a lot of yelling and shouting and a lot of people seeking revenge after they had to use their one-up and such sort of shenanigans such as that. So I really hope you can make sense of this video, and I hope I haven't waffled on too much, and I'll leave you guys to it, and hopefully I'll have something up again soon when we run through a game with Luke and Jeremy soon. So it should be lots of fun. I'm actually looking forward to it, and I'll see you guys then. Bye. So that's it, guys. Sorry, it was a bit of a long waffle there, but hopefully you guys at least got the gist of how it works and how it plays. It is actually fun for everybody. It's not just for like hardened gamers or anything like that, and it does really promote the heroes, etc., working together to get through. Otherwise, you just won't get through. I doubt you'll get through on the first play anyway. So yeah, like, it's a very fun game, and it's coming out soon. Pre-order 10th of the 10th, 25. So hope to see you all there. Thank you.
Have you got what it takes?